Alrighty, so welcome to the call today. Today's webinar is on the topic of deciding if LinkedIn is the right business development tool for you in 2014. I'd like to welcome our guest presenter, Indra Chandon, who's going to be joining us for today's call. Her background in the technology space and understanding how to use the internet as a business tool, let alone LinkedIn, is quite extensive. So I'm very excited about having her here today. Welcome, Indra.
Thank you, David.
Look, during the call today, if anyone has any questions, our preference would be that you put them in the question box, and we'll try and answer as many of those as we can as we go through the call. So maybe we'll start with a little bit about yourself, Indra. Just give us a bit of background.
Okay. So I just wanted to say thank you to David and his team for inviting me along to talk about LinkedIn today. It's one of those topics that I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about. So as David said, please type your questions as they come to you in the question box, and we'll get to them as quickly as we can. So about me, I'm we're having a technical issue this end just at the moment, so here we go. This is me. If you didn't Google me before, this is a quick snapshot of the business person that I am. And as you can see, I'm a company director at a company called Semantia, and Semantia is a technology solutions provider. We basically provide software for highly specialized situations that help companies reduce headcount and increase data accuracy and provide all sorts of specialist reporting and create whole new revenue streams. The other thing that I'm involved with is another business or brand name called Conversion Leadership. And Conversion Leadership is actually Semantia's digital marketing division. And here we provide fully outsourced services in the online marketing space for mid-sized businesses. So everything from SEO blogging to YouTube video marketing to managing your AdWords accounts is something that we do.
Fantastic.
So as you can see, I'm not actually one of these LinkedIn gurus or a social media expert or anything like that. I'm more of a generalist internet marketing consultant kind of person. And personally, I think this is good news for you guys who are listening today, because it means that I'm here to give you information and answer your questions honestly and without bias, so that you can make up your own mind about whether LinkedIn is something that is going to work for you and your business.
Excellent. Thanks, Indra. So, look, I suppose I'd like to start by just really getting a bit of an understanding. What is LinkedIn? If you were going to sum it up in a few words, what would you describe it as?
LinkedIn is, in terms of social media, we sort of lump a whole bunch of different types of these kinds of social engaging things all together.
Yep.
LinkedIn is social networking. So in the context of how we are in the real world, you can imagine that LinkedIn is a little bit like either having a stand at an expo, where you're showcasing what you and your business are about, or it's like going to a networking event where you're actually going out there and you're meeting people and you're expanding your network and you're looking for prospects or people who can refer you.
Right.
You're doing that kind of thing. So there's sort of the two main ways in which people understand and can use LinkedIn to best advantage in the business world.
Great. Look, the other thing I think with LinkedIn, and I know especially in the past, it was great for actually finding out about people's backgrounds.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the things that makes LinkedIn really fantastic from a business perspective is that it is this lovely, concise place where you can go and spy on your competitors, or do your competitor research, I should say,
Yeah.
and vet potential employees, or find out whether somebody's worth headhunting. So if you're looking to find somebody new for your business, then there's a central location where you can find pretty much everybody and find out what they've really been doing.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about why someone should actually choose to go on LinkedIn.
Okay, so I imagine that most of the people that are listening to the call today, David, are pretty much across the general reasons why you should be on LinkedIn. There's loads and loads of social proof, and there's lots and lots of statistics about why it's really good for your business. But the thing that I found the most interesting was one of the questions that came out of the LinkedIn user survey this year And the question was asked, how has LinkedIn helped you?
Yeah.
And one of the things that was very interesting and somewhat predictable is that 75% of people who answered the survey turned around and said that it's most useful for researching people and companies.
Yeah.
And you'd expect that, that notion of the competitor research and checking out potential employees.
Yeah.
What I found most interesting, though, is of the 8 answers that were actually given, 5 are very clearly business, marketing, and sales related activities.
Right.
And they are generating identifiable business opportunities, building new relationships with potential customers,
right.
building new networking relationships with individuals who may influence your potential customers,
right.
increasing your face-to-face networking effectiveness. So if you've connected with somebody on LinkedIn and then you're actually meeting them in a room at an event, you have a better rapport going there. So that's fantastic. And then obviously the big one that everyone's very focused on, and that is increasing brand marketing presence in the marketplace.
Okay.
So to me, it shows that LinkedIn is moving away from being this sort of career and resume hub to being very much focused on helping business do self-promotion and expanding their own business networks.
Okay, so really it's a networking tool now. It's about giving people that ability to contact a hard-to-get decision maker or find a link between that person and them. So maybe an informal or formal introduction, and really just allowing people to actually generate leads or find leads online.
Absolutely. And that leads us to a couple of case studies that I wanted to share with you today.
Sure.
And the thing that I wanted to just start with is that the 2 case studies that I'm actually sharing, I've chosen these because I know that your audience tends to be smaller business that's running lean and very entrepreneurial. And so the businesses that I've chosen, I doubt that you've actually heard of. And if you have, that's fantastic. They're obviously doing a good job. But I felt that if I were to present you with case studies from Coca-Cola or Apple, those guys have huge marketing budgets.
They
have trained people, and really, realistically, 99% of businesses on this planet can't copy or do what they're doing. It's just unrealistic.
Okay, so let's go through those studies.
Okay, so the first one that I wanted to present is a company called Postcard Mania. Now, if you've ever been into a cafe, you may have seen those racks of free postcards that you can pick up.
Yeah.
It's a marketing strategy where you basically create postcards and they get sent out or collected by people.
Okay.
And so this company, Postcard Mania, they actually make it happen. They do everything from the design and printing of postcards to getting the agreements in place with the cafes where the racks of these cards are going to be. And then they report on how postcards have been picked up and used and sent out.
Right.
So with Postcard Mania, they used what we call an educational strategy on LinkedIn. So their intention was to increase awareness of their business.
Yep.
And they wanted to grow their prospect database and encourage people to use their service. So this is how they did it. Their marketing sales BDM person, so think of this is a smaller business where there's one person who's responsible for marketing, sales, and business development. What they did was they decided that they would join a number of the LinkedIn groups.
Right.
And the groups that they actually joined were ones that targeted or contained the small businesses that were their target market. So it was groups to do with floristry, photographers, financial advisors, that sort of thing. So people that were most likely to want to do a postcard marketing activity.
Yeah.
And then what this person did was they actively contributed to the discussions of the groups.
Yep.
So whenever there was a question about marketing, they would go in and they would actually provide answers to that. As certain questions became more frequent, so the same questions were being asked over and over again, what this person did was they then created some really relevant content that sort of answered to those particular questions. And so they ended up with some sort of marketing replies, as it were, that they could then just copy and paste whenever a particular question was asked.
Right.
And basically, the one thing that they created that turned out to be very powerful for them was a sort of a reply called 8 Ways to Grow Your Local Business for Free.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did was they provided little snippets, little paragraphs, 8 little paragraphs, each with a link to more information that was on their website.
Right.
And then from there, once the person clicked through on any of those 8 little links, they would actually capture the information of that person on the website and put it into their contact database. And so this is how they grew their prospect database. Once the person was actually within their own database, not on LinkedIn, but in their own database, they could then directly email market to them.
Okay.
And so that brought people closer.
So really, like, just to sort of talk about that in layman terms, it's basically using LinkedIn as a place to go and meet people. Yep. You can go to special interest groups. You can become a member. Then you create conversations, and out of those conversations, you're extracting contact details.
Absolutely.
So it's no different to networking.
No, it's exactly the same as networking.
Okay.
Absolutely the same as networking. And so using this particular strategy, Postcard Mania actually generated 600 leads and $72,000 in revenue out of just that activity on LinkedIn.
Okay, so really for a small business owner, this is quite a doable strategy.
Absolutely, very doable strategy.
Yep.
It requires focus and persistence. Persistence is the big thing with regards to social media, full stop.
Okay.
So if you actually check Postcard Mania on LinkedIn now, you'll actually see that they've invested even more time and resources into additional strategies that they're using. So for them, this one successful strategy has encouraged them to do even more on LinkedIn.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so it's a good story. So it obviously means a small company can quite easily utilise this service. They don't need to have a big budget.
No.
They just need to be focused and they need to have a strategy.
Yep. And I think paying a lot of attention to what it is that they're recognising in terms of the communication that's coming back to them. So this BDM who actually was able to pick up on the fact that the same questions were being asked over and over and there again, and then tailoring a reply that they could leverage to get people back into their website was the right thing to do.
Yeah, excellent.
For that business.
Look, we've had one question pop up. I don't know if you want to take this question now, but Ian's just asked, is there an experimentation time period where people should be testing when they're getting results from this sort of strategy?
Yeah, I think that if you have a strong brand, obviously the time frame is much shorter. Right. If you have a brand that is very, very new or is not widely known beyond, say, your suburb or city, then the time frame is obviously going to be a lot longer. So the thing that we would do is we would always look for responsiveness by volume, by number, if you're a small brand or an unrecognized brand. Right. So you're looking for X number of responses to something. And that, for some organisations, that may occur within a month period. For others, it may actually take a full 12 months, depending on how niche their organisation or product and services are. Okay,
so the testing and measuring dynamic still exists.
Yes,
that
it does.
We need to have some sort of parameter that we gauge success on, and we need to define what we think an appropriate amount of time is before we actually just overinvest or overcapitalise in this strategy.
Yeah, and I think that with regards to social media, I would love to be able to turn around and say, this is a rule, this is another rule, and this is a guideline. Unfortunately, as we do more and more on social media and there's more and more activity being done with regards to marketing and social media, we're finding that fewer and fewer of the so-called rules that people have in the early days were espousing just do not apply at all. Times of day, we see such variation as to what works and what doesn't work. And
I suppose it is dynamic as well, isn't it? Yeah. Because as the technology develops and as people adopt the technology, what will work today won't work tomorrow.
Exactly.
Okay, excellent.
So this next business is called DocuSign, and they're a niche technology company that deal in e-signatures. So that's an electronic way to control a secure signature on a document. So if you can't put pen to paper, this is a way for authenticating a document has been signed. And it's used in the real estate industry and in financial services and legal industry. So as you can imagine, highly specialized, very, very limited sort of potential prospect and audience. You know, this is something that this is a product that doesn't solve problems for a lot of people.
Right.
Not really.
Okay. So what strategy do these guys use?
So these guys used what we would call a traditional email marketing strategy on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And so what they did was they wanted to specifically identify individual people that were their target market.
Right.
So as you can imagine, very few people. So we actually really wanted to get only 2 very specific individuals past their gatekeepers. And the goal was to increase membership on their website.
Right.
Okay, so what they did was DocuSign actually had a business development manager. And so what this guy did was he actually bought what LinkedIn call sponsored in-mail. Now, this is the ability to send one marketing message to whoever. You don't actually have to be connected to these people to send this message.
So this is a premium LinkedIn account, isn't it?
No, it's not a premium LinkedIn account as such. It's actually a service, a marketing service, a bit like the LinkedIn ads or sponsored updates. It's something that you can purchase as a business.
Okay. So literally as a business owner, we have more options.
Yes.
Which means we can actually now use it as a broadcast platform. Which is the equivalent of email.
Exactly. And the nice thing about it is that we don't actually have to know these people. We don't have to have their email address up front. So what this guy did was he bought these in-mail in bulk. There was some deal that was going at the time and he bought them. And what is really fabulous about the in-mail service is that you can target by geographic area as well as the size of the company, the job title, and a whole bunch of other parameters. So you can really target in on very specific individuals. So if you've got if you're really, really niched as an organization, you can actually turn around and say, you know what, I don't care about the rest of Australia. I only care about people in Melbourne who happen to be facilities managers, for example. And just create messaging especially for that market through this particular service that's offered.
Okay. So not dissimilar to Facebook allows us to use this parameter where we can actually pick people based on their hobbies, their interests, their locality, their marital status. So we can get right into the psychographics of a person.
Absolutely.
Where with search engine marketing, really all we can do is rely on a keyword someone types in. So one of the questions that's come up from Gerald is, what's the distinction between Facebook and LinkedIn?
Okay, so we have so there's fundamentally 2 very different kinds of participants in those 2 social networks. On Facebook, probably about 4 years ago, there were quite a few business people on there. And it was quite a successful platform for engaging in business activities. Over the years, what has happened is we've had early adopters and teenagers and mums and families get engaged in Facebook because it is a very, very social space. And so now what's happened is it's become less compelling as a business environment for certain types of businesses. So Facebook, we have seen, works quite nicely for businesses that have consumer products. So if you have things that are that photograph nicely, such as jewelry, or you've got things that are part of people's everyday life, such as beauty products or fashion, these kinds of things work really nicely on Facebook because you're going straight out to the end consumer. If you're in a business-to-business space, if you're wanting to do things that expands your business network, if you're wanting to prospect, it's
much more commercial.
It's more challenging. It's more challenging because the volume of people that you have is far greater. And so you're looking for the few odd people in business that are still within Facebook,
Right.
and you've got to filter out all of the rest.
Okay.
With LinkedIn, you don't have the sort of the social aspect to the same extent.
Yeah. So I mean, my distinction has always been Facebook's a social media, which is basically almost like a party online.
Yes, that would be a good analogy.
Of personal and experiential. People talk about their holidays. They take photos of their friends and their kids and their food and their cats and all those sorts of things. Where LinkedIn is a much more almost a white collar style where it is a business forum. So people are putting their resumes, their work history, who they know, who they're connected to. So it's much more of a commercial environment. So I think they both serve a purpose.
Oh, absolutely, they do.
Because the one thing I suppose with Facebook is just the sheer volume of users that are on Facebook and the amount of time they spend on there and the purpose. So most people are using Facebook to keep connected with their friends.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is interesting about Facebook is that many businesses are disinclined to continue investing significantly in Facebook in terms of it as a social media marketing platform, because Facebook now as a listed organisation have a lot of shareholder responsibility, and this is influencing features and what is becoming available to marketers. So, for example, recently with a new announcement out of Facebook indicating that they are going to focus a great deal more on the pay-per-click and the advertising revenue side of their business and less on helping people grow their networks, means that anybody who's had a Facebook strategy that revolved around growing a network are about to be heavily sabotaged with regards to how they actually get any of their updates out and in front of their followers.
Well, that's happening already, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Because what's happening with the Facebook pages is that not everybody who follows a page receives information.
That's right.
It's determined by the popularity of the information, whether you boost the post or not. So now it's a commercial proposition. Where it used to be more just a social thing. And
so if you've got a lot of followers on there who are following you, not necessarily from a business perspective, but more from a context of being happy with your particular brand, then you're actually paying to be in front of those people, and you have less discrimination.
Okay.
LinkedIn has an equivalent kind of context, in actual fact, with their company pages, where anyone who follows your company page, they actually, all of them, receive the updates in their home feed.
Right.
So you're, to a certain extent, what you're missing out on in Facebook, you actually still can have in LinkedIn.
Okay. So really, in a nutshell, I suppose that LinkedIn is more a B2B style networking arrangement. Facebook more a business to consumer arrangement. Now you mentioned products. Ron's just asked a question. What about marketing services to people?
Marketing services is increasingly challenging, and we'll cover some of the difficulties with regards to product services in particular when we talk about some of the predictions for social media and LinkedIn in particular further in the webinar.
Okay.
But with regards to services right now, it's LinkedIn is probably the better of the two social networks we've just been talking about, because most people who are looking for professional services are more likely to be looking for a referral or a recommendation via a professional network rather than a social network.
So what about a personal trainer?
So a personal trainer is quite fortunate because they actually can cross both.
Right.
Personal trainers who want to actually get contracts within businesses where they go and do lunchtime training with staff, they can be on LinkedIn. And those who actually are looking for, doing a morning mothers group kind of training session, doing well on Facebook.
So it brings it back to the sort of perennial marketing strategy, which is you advertise where your target market's looking.
It's exactly right. You've got to be where your market's looking.
Excellent.
So with regards to, we'll get back to DocuSign very quickly. So DocuSign basically had a 3 email message campaign, and it was sent out to 7,000 targeted individuals, and it ran over 6 months. Now, the reason it ran over 6 months is because when you're using the LinkedIn in-mail system, it only allows you to send one sponsored in-mail to a person every 60 days. So they had this very long gap between each of the 3 messages. The interesting thing was that even with those very long gaps, that 60 days between message, the campaign actually resulted in them acquiring 800 participants in their membership for the website. So did very, very well.
Yep.
And if you actually take a look at the DocuSign company page on LinkedIn, you'll actually see they now have over 6,000 followers. And this is great because it's exactly what we were talking about before. The people who are following the company page now get to see every update that DocuSign actually puts on their company page, and they see it in their home feed on LinkedIn. So very, very cool.
Okay, great.
So let's move on from how other businesses are actually using LinkedIn to some of the fundamental questions I get asked about LinkedIn by business people. And so these questions, these 5 questions that I'm going to cover, are actually questions that I get asked. It may not be your most pressing question, but these are the things that I tend to get asked about. So please put your questions in the box on the right and we'll get to them as we go through.
Fantastic.
So the first question that I get asked is, what is the difference between LinkedIn personal profiles, LinkedIn groups, LinkedIn company pages, and LinkedIn showcase pages? So let's go through them one by one. Okay. So your personal profile, this is you can think of it as being an expanded business card. It's where you have information about who you are as a business person and what your history is in the business world. Now, just like when you're attending a networking event, you know, you're in a room full of people you don't know necessarily. When you hand over your business card is when the other person that you're meeting will get more information about you. And it's the same on LinkedIn. Until somebody is your connection, they actually see a very limited kind of information about you. So once you're connected to each other, you get to see a lot more information about each other. And so this is why accepting connections is an important part of networking on LinkedIn, because as you connect with somebody, you get to see the extent of their network, you see what groups and things interest them, and a whole lot of other information which can be quite useful in terms of decision making.
So really, in terms of the LinkedIn personal profile, people need to make sure that they've got almost their resume to a degree. But more importantly, a bit more about, you know, the services they offer.
So with regards to your profile, when you're a business owner, and I think that this is probably the most important thing for your audience here today, when you're a business owner, often you're wearing multiple hats in the business. So you're the CEO and the founder of the business, but then you might also be the sales guy in the business, or you might be the marketing person, or you might be the person who handles complaints, or whatever it is that you have to wear a hat for. Now, because you're in that kind of role, one of the things that we often suggest to our clients is that if you are handling and you have a very, very important secondary role, such as a sales manager within your business, then it's absolutely worthwhile setting up 2 profiles on LinkedIn. One that represents you as the CEO, so that when you're networking at that level, when you're wanting to meet the CEO of another organization, when you're wanting to deal with other business owners, that you can front up in as that role, and you're respected and treated as that person. If you're then also the sales guy for your organization, have that sales guy
as a separate
profile also, so that when you're going out and you're networking and you're wanting to actually do business, you also have that profile. Now, it sounds challenging. What it does in actual fact is it keeps the the two roles quite distinct,
Mhm.
and it makes networking on LinkedIn a lot easier in actual fact.
Right. So is it two separate logins, or do you have two separate?
Yes, it's two separate logins.
Right. So you actually have your name on LinkedIn twice.
Yes, you do.
Right. Two different roles within the same organisation.
Absolutely.
Got it.
I know it sounds absolutely mad and really crazy, but I think from a business perspective,
Well,
very, very useful to have that.
makes a lot of sense, because it just means that I'm appearing as the person that is networking with me expects me to appear. So
That's right.
So that's a good tip. Excellent. So let's
Okay.
move on. So
Yep.
that's the personal profile side.
Yep.
Might have multiple personalities going now.
Interestingly enough, if you actually do some searches on LinkedIn, you'll find that some fairly high profile people have quite a few LinkedIn profiles.
Right.
It's very, very interesting. So the next one let's talk about is LinkedIn groups.
Mm-hmm.
So you can think of LinkedIn groups as being a kind of an internet location, a page where people that are interested in a specific topic can sort of share and collaborate together.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been on the internet for a while, you may have experienced in the past the idea of a forum.
Yes.
LinkedIn groups are forums.
Right.
They're exactly the same. So once you're a member of a group on LinkedIn, the lovely thing that they've enabled is that every other member of that same group you can automatically request a connection of. So, say for example, I wanted to be connected to Adam, who happens to be the CEO of a company called APP, but I can't get past his gatekeeper in any other situation. But I have a quick look at his profile on LinkedIn, and I'm not connected. And LinkedIn won't allow me to connect to him because there is no relationship that exists at this point. Right? So what I find is I have a quick scan through the profile part that I can see, and I see he's in a particular group on LinkedIn. So if I now go and join that group, I can actually now, once I'm a member of the group and I've been approved, I can actually make a request to connect directly to Adam.
Okay, so not dissimilar to networking. I join a networking group. I get approved into the group, which now means I'm on the inside in the circle, and I can now make connections with those players within that group.
Absolutely.
That's a great tip. So with LinkedIn groups, are you suggesting that the business owner joins several groups or creates, or both?
Well, absolutely joins.
Yeah.
And is very discerning about the groups that they join. So we've seen loads of people who actually use this particular strategy as a way to get to people and get past gatekeepers. So if you are in a niche business and really, really struggling to get past gatekeepers, this would be a strategy that you would utilize. But then remember, it's how you follow up after you've made the connection that's going to really matter.
So really what it's doing, it's opening some doors, just giving us an alternative route, which is not mainstream. So gatekeepers really don't deal with, in the main, the people who are entering through these channels.
Absolutely. And as you can imagine, now, if you've got these if you're a business owner and you've got the two profiles, if you're the sales guy, you're going to go where your target market is. If you're the CEO, you're going to go where your partners and potential deal makers are. So having the two profiles, once you're within the group setting, will make a difference.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay, so the next one is the LinkedIn company pages. Okay, so I describe these as being a little bit like having a mini website within LinkedIn where you can share information about your business. The thing about this mini website, though, is that LinkedIn actually controls the type of pages and the type of information you can actually put up. So currently you get like a home page, which is sort of like a brief introduction. You can think of it as your elevator pitch, I think. That's a good analogy. Then there's a careers page, which allows you to advertise job vacancies, which unfortunately once was free and now has been monetized by LinkedIn. So I'm sorry, I can't help with that one. And the other is the products and services page. And this is where you'll find that the big brands are doing loads and loads of promotion of their products and services, providing lots and lots of information and also attempting to capture testimonials from people as well.
Right.
So the thing about the company pages is that people can choose to follow you. And we did touch on this before.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as somebody becomes a follower of your company page, any updates that you put to your company page get broadcast and show up in their actual home stream. Now, I keep mentioning home stream, and what I mean by that is when you first log into your LinkedIn account, there's a page which has a menu across the top. There's some bits and pieces of promotional stuff that LinkedIn do, but then there's a page where you have your little profile picture and you can put manually type in an update, and underneath that are updates from all of the people that are in your network and connection. That's your home stream, and that's where those updates from company pages are displayed.
Right. So very similar to Facebook in the way that it runs. Is that stream is just a rolling update, range of updates. But I suppose the distinction you mentioned before is that these updates are actually all being represented. So you're not just seeing the most popular ones.
That's exactly right. And with the added bonus of sponsored updates, that is where you pay for your ad to be displayed at a certain time for a certain duration. You have the added opportunity to be in front of anyone who's following you for a much longer time than ordinarily you would get a chance to do.
Fantastic. So the LinkedIn company page for a small business owner?
Absolutely.
LinkedIn company page, joining groups and potentially creating some groups.
Yes.
Making sure they've got multiple personalities.
One of the things that if you're time poor as a business owner and this is going to be a challenge, I would steer clear of creating your own LinkedIn group until you've got resources available to you to assist you with that, because there are a lot of issues in terms of administrating a group that can cause some difficulties in terms of time for people that are somewhat time challenged. The last page that I wanted to talk about is the LinkedIn showcase pages, and they're actually new this year. They're a new type of page that you can create under your company page, your mini website, LinkedIn website area. And the idea of them is that you are able to represent or chop up your information in ways that could potentially be more meaningful. So, for example, you might have a showcase page that represents the different divisions of your business or different product ranges, or if you've got a bunch of different individually identified brands that you represent in your business, you know, you might have a showcase page for each of those.
So let's go back to the small business owner, because here we've got the time poor person who's looking at this and going, oh my God, this could take up my whole month, let alone my whole day. Where do they start and where do they stop?
Okay, so I think from a small business owner's perspective, it's got everything to do with what outcome they're looking to achieve from LinkedIn. So if they're looking to grow a database or a list, then that's networking activities. So that's about going out there, meeting people, engaging with people, and meeting and getting connections. Okay,
so really what you're suggesting is the small business owner looks at this and says, this is an investment of time. If I'm paying my team members, or if I'm myself, I'm going to networking events, this is an alternative to networking events?
This is absolutely an alternative to networking events. So if you're going to networking events multiple times per week and you're spending an hour at each networking event, then the reality is you would treat this as if it were another 1 hour networking event.
Okay, so really once these pages and these showcase pages and these groups and all these things are set up, it's now a job. And the business owner or their salespeople need to actually allocate time to this network with a measurable outcome.
Absolutely.
And I suppose, you know, as in always with marketing, the measurable outcome will be leads. Quality leads or appointments or something like that.
Yes, absolutely. So you're always in any activity that you're doing with regards to networking at all. You are always tying it back to business outcomes and KPIs.
Right.
So it's no different at all.
Excellent.
So okay, so let's move on. We've done all of the LinkedIn bits. So the next one is, do people who are personally connected to me on LinkedIn automatically become followers of my LinkedIn company page? Well, the short and correct answer to that is no, they don't. Your personal profile is actually independent and separate to your company page. And so what that means is even your company page updates do not update to your personal profile, vice versa.
So using the network analogy,
yep.
How would you explain this?
So if I were out at a networking event, I am representing my company, but the person that I'm meeting is the person who is meeting me is meeting me, not the company.
Right. So,
I'm sort of a representative of the company.
So we connect on LinkedIn. That's a personal connection.
That's right.
It's not a company connection.
That's right.
So really, if we have the company page, the purpose of that
is a little bit like somebody going to a demonstration night or going to a seminar that's put on by the company, to a sales call or a sales event.
Okay.
That's the equivalent. So in that context, if you're going to, say, a seminar that's put on by the company to hear about their products and services, that's like having a company page.
Okay.
So they're two quite distinct and different things,
right,
if that makes sense.
Totally.
Okay. So the next question is, how many updates per day should I post on our LinkedIn company page?
Yeah.
So, this is a curly question because as much as I said in the beginning, there are no rules. And so what I'm providing you here is what we use internally within Conversion Leadership as a guide. So the team actually use these numbers to determine the baseline social media activity we would be doing on behalf of any new clients.
Okay.
So as you can see,
comforting to know it's only 1 to 2 per week for the small organisation because this can sort of rule your world if you get too engaged in it.
Absolutely, and in actual fact, with these numbers, they are quite low. So if you imagine if we were doing a very specific campaign or a particularly intensive strategy, these numbers would be considerably higher, and you would do the same.
Okay, so really as a rule of thumb, we're talking between 1 and 5 per week for the typical mid to small business.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yep. And obviously, the larger the organisation, the more resources and the more people expect that you can be doing a lot more on social media.
Fantastic.
So expectation does play a part with regards to this kind of thing.
Okay.
So how do I automate updates to our LinkedIn company page? And this is a really good question for small business owners in particular because they are time poor, and it's important that you give them as many tools as possible with regards to this. So I'll start by turning around and saying that you can do this manually, and you just basically log into LinkedIn, go to your company page, and then you post an update if you're an administrator of the company page. So that's the baseline, and that's probably how most people would start out.
Right.
Then you have the next level, which is automating the process.
Yep.
Now, to update your company page, you actually, and do it in an automated fashion, you actually need to use a third-party service. And you give that third-party service authorization to access your LinkedIn account.
Yep.
So if you're anxious about that, then you're probably going to have to stick with the manual process.
I suppose the key here is that we can automate.
Absolutely.
And which means we don't need to be posting every week. We can actually set up a string of posts.
Absolutely.
And just have that running in the background.
Yep. And so basically these automated third-party services, you give them either you type in all of the messages you want to go out over a particular period of time, or you give them a URL to what's called an RSS feed, and it does everything else. Fantastic. So in addition to automating, there's also a really, really fantastic thing for small businesses, and that's scheduling updates. So now we're getting a little bit more sophisticated. We're actually telling the third-party service that we want our updates to go out on a particular day at a particular time, because that's when we know most of the people who are following us are actually going to see those updates. And so there are 3 social media management tools that we actually recommend to help you with both scheduling and automation. Are Hootsuite, which I think a lot of the people on this call would probably be familiar with.
Yep.
The next one is called Buffer, Buffer.
Okay.
And the one that we choose to use called Deliver It, and that's DLVR.IT.
Okay.
Now, we choose that one because it also enables Google Plus updating, and Google Plus has been notoriously difficult to do automated updating for.
So really the point here is leverage yourself, leverage your delivery of your messages, and make sure it's all automated.
Yep. Automate, schedule, do whatever it takes to make it easy for yourself.
You took the words right out of my mouth. The frequently asked question number 5. How do I measure a result from a LinkedIn strategy? This is the most significant thing to me as a business coach. I've just realized with all of the people out there using social media, if it's not measurable as an outcome, it can be just a waste of time and money.
Yep.
So how do we measure it?
Okay, so ROI on social media is notoriously difficult, and there will be a load of people on this call who, and I suspect you also, David, who won't be entirely happy with some of these answers. So I'll do my best for you. Okay, so with your personal profile, so I'll go through a bunch of the different things that we will measure. So on your personal profile, you basically are tracking the number of new connection requests you receive as an indicator of how successful you're being, because people who find out about you understand the value of what you do and who you are will want to connect to you. And that desire, that attraction of connections is a very, very powerful thing. It also means that this other person is wanting you to communicate with them. So this is the equivalent. Well, it's not just an opt-in. It's what we would consider to be a warm or enthusiastic prospect.
Okay.
Because they have sought you out. So this is the first one that we look at.
Yep.
The other, which is provided on all profiles and I also displayed at the beginning in my profile, is the number of times people have looked at your profile.
Right.
Now, the reason we like this as another indicator of success is because it indicates whether you are using the language of ordinary people to describe who you are and what you do.
Right.
So if you are using terms to describe yourself and what you're about in ways that actually is meaningful to others, then you're going to show up a lot in search.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So really this is about your keywords that you're utilising.
Absolutely.
The market to message match.
Yeah.
And it's really just an indicator of whether you're resonating with the target market.
And that's exactly the one that I like, the market to message match.
Yeah.
It's making sure that you're speaking the language of your market. And often in business, we get very tied into our own terminology. And David, you and I spoke about this before the webinar. You said you would haul me up if I started using too much tech speak.
Yeah.
But we can get very tied up in our own internal language and forget that sometimes everything that we're communicating has to be in other people's language.
Okay, so that's a really good indicator.
So the next one is the company page, and the company page has a nice little tab on it called Insights. And this is the analytics that LinkedIn is providing to show how engaged people are on your updates with regards to your updates. So when an update appears on somebody's home feed, if they click through and come and read the entire update as part of your company page, or they clicking on the link and going off to your website, we're actually getting to see that on that Insights tab as part of your company page. And the nice thing about it is because LinkedIn is a social platform, you're actually also getting follower demographics. So you're getting to know about the number of the number of people from particular companies, the industries, all of those fantastic bits and pieces of information that can help you with some interesting decisions in your business. For LinkedIn groups, it's the number of people it's the number of follow-up comments and contributions that are made by others on any questions or comments that you personally contribute.
Right.
Now, the reason that that's of value to know and to pay attention to
Yep.
is because it is an indicator of you as a thought leader within that particular space.
Right.
It also is an indicator of the value of your contribution. And those kinds of sort of unconscious and subtle things play a really fantastic role when it comes to trust and loyalty.
Okay.
So if you're looking to engage people, you need their trust.
Yes.
If you're engaging with people that you already know, you want their loyalty, because this is how you build fans and raving fans, is through these two sort of indescribable connections that we make with other people.
Okay. So really, what we're saying is that LinkedIn is a not only a forum where we can connect with people, we can also gauge their interest in engagement. We've got some quite intimate details about their psychographics, their demographics, and all those sorts of things as well. So we can measure through these level of interactions the amount of trust potentially with our prospective clients from these interactions.
So with this last one, David, if you imagine that you're on stage and you're presenting to a group, you can measure how engaged somebody is by whether they're looking at you or they're fidgeting.
Yes.
We don't get those visual cues in these environments. What we get instead is how people are participating, whether they're commenting or adding their own questions.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah. So ideally, what you really want in actual fact in any social media activity you're engaged with is getting people out of that platform and onto your own website.
Right.
And so
this comes down to leads.
This is absolutely about leads, but it's also about click-throughs as well.
Yep.
So if you're providing valuable information and people see it as that and then they click through to your website, that also indicates that what you have done is you've communicated the right message in the right way to an extent where people have gone, you know what, I trust this enough that I'm prepared to leave the comfort of the social network to come and look at you and what you're telling me.
Right. So in real world terms, it's as if we've had an appointment.
Absolutely.
With this person. They've stuck their hand up and said, I'm interested. Now we know who they are and we can start to actually interact at that level.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's keep moving. So you've got some predictions here. I noticed you've got some crystal balls there. so let's go through this fairly quickly because I'm conscious of time.
Yeah.
So your 5 predictions that'll influence the social networking on LinkedIn in 2014. Let's go.
Okay. So these are going to play a big role for small businesses purely because some of them will influence whether you decide to move forward with this or not in reality. So the first one we all talk about is profile optimization. And basically, if you think about the internet in general, it is a vast and growing place. And just as we have to optimize our websites to be found on search engines, all of our social networks are vast and growing spaces, and more profiles are appearing every single day, no matter which social media platform you're using. And so it is getting to be a challenge to be found, even in those spaces. So
when we talk about profile optimization, what you're really saying is making sure that we're conscious of the tech, the terminology, the wording,
absolutely,
the message to market match that we talked about before, and just making sure that we're tuned in to what our prospects.
Absolutely. So basically, the thing about your profile is that most people will actually set it up and then just leave it, and that's absolutely fine. You can probably get away with that for a year at most. The thing that you want to be doing is, as a business owner, whenever something changes in your business that impacts on how you can present yourself to the outside networking world, make sure you do make those small changes so that you are constantly reflecting what's going on for your business in that way. So the next one is, you may have, if you've been following anything to do with social media, you will have heard about the idea of visual social. That is that social networking is becoming increasingly visual, and we want visual content like photographs and video and infographics and all sorts of other bits and pieces. Well, it's set to continue into 2014. the thing that we're seeing in actual fact is the novelty aspect. And by novelty, I don't mean humorous necessarily. If you want to go that path, you can. What I mean by novelty is that people's attention span and desire for new is increasing.
Okay.
That means that you have to be a lot more frequent and a lot fresher.
So it doesn't mean cats.
No, it doesn't necessarily mean cats.
Fantastic.
And in actual fact, we're finding that people are increasingly getting bored and switching off from things like infographics and those coloured squares or photographs with inspirational quotes. People are now starting to get turned off by them in actual fact.
So what are they looking for?
New, fresh.
New. So not that.
Well, not necessarily not that, but a mix. They want variety, and by novelty, that's one of the things we're talking about. They want variety, they want fresh, they want different. And so, as you can imagine, if you're a small business like a services company where visual content is a real challenge, this particular area of social networking may become a significant barrier to entry for you.
Unless we get creative.
Unless you get creative. And so it comes down to coming up with something that's out of the box for your business. And there are some very interesting examples and case studies of companies that you would never imagine, like funeral directors, coming up with incredible visual social content strategies.
Mind boggles.
It does boggle. It really does boggle. So just keep your eye out for what's happening in other industries that are equally challenged by the visual social aspect of being part of social networking. And I would say that this particular trend is across every single social network, not just LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
So now for a positive one, we call it controlling the narrative. And this is an emerging trend, and we're seeing it very much in the big brand space. It's where big brands are using social media to get their own message and their own version of events across to their audience, to counter sensationalist journalism or, you know, the bad mouthing of bored people who just are out there being malicious.
Right.
So
in layman terms.
In layman terms, it means that big companies at the moment are going through, and if something bad has happened in the press, so, for example, there was a problem for a large oil company that happened in the press. Their competitors realised that there would be a flow-on effect into them, so they started to utilise LinkedIn through sponsored updates, increasing their LinkedIn group activity, and using InMail to actually turn around and say, we're not the bad guys here, so that their brand wasn't tarnished by what had happened by one rogue player in their industry.
So really what you're saying here is the internet allows our customers to complain online. And those complaints really are very difficult to erase.
Yes, they are.
So the way to deal with that is to control the narrative and to make sure that we have a voice. And we are responding in a way that makes or mitigates the exposure that we have from those things.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
And we're seeing it being used increasingly as a very positive way to control what public opinion is about your business.
Excellent.
So the next one we'll talk about is big data. And again, this is another buzzword that's raised its ugly head in 2013. More importantly for social media, it's the social media analytics side of it, which is probably the more interesting side of it. So if you think about social media, there is a huge amount of information that's being collected. There's user data, there's all of this, you know, there's volumes and volumes and volumes of it. But within it, there's some interesting stuff that you can define or get to that helps with business decision making. So this is going to be an area of significance in 2014. Now, right now, we've got a number of third-party paid services that are actually providing some very useful social media analytics, and companies like SAS Social Media Analytics, SysOmos Media Analysis Platform, and Topsy. Now, Topsy is very, very interesting because, we all love Apple because they're big leader and trendsetter in technology. Well, just last week they bought Topsy. So the big players understand how important social media analytics is going to be.
And I think what you're saying is big data, social media analytics, we can start predicting buyer behaviour just by seeing what they're doing online. And with the level of profile that's available, it's becoming increasingly important for the small business owner, especially, to start predicting, like Amazon does when you buy a book and they say people who bought those 3 books will probably buy this book next.
Absolutely.
This predictive marketing.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what this is about.
Excellent.
This space is not for the faint-hearted. No. If you're going to go this path, you will need assistance. You'll need somebody to set it up for you, and you'll probably need somebody to train you and your people in.
I suppose the big message here is this is a prediction for the future and where it's all going.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can imagine that this will be a very useful tool into the future.
Yeah. We're thinking that this will become more prominent toward the end of 2014 and become the big thing in 2015.
Okay, let's get on to this last one.
Yes, the very last of these little predictions. And this is to do with automating and what we call programmatic marketing. And programmatic marketing is something I think you talk about as automated marketing, David, with your people.
Yeah, well, we talk about these days, utilising a CRM to the maximum, making sure that you've got campaigns, making sure you've got autoresponder sequences, just really understanding that the technology can help us provide the right message at the right time for our clients.
Absolutely. And to a certain extent, these systems are becoming more sophisticated so that you can even include some personalisation in there. So you can turn around and put the recipient's name in the middle of the message, and you can actually bring in some other things that are more personalised. So what we're seeing in 2014 is that there will be a greater dependence on technology solutions to assist marketers and business owners with this whole space of social media and marketing.
It's almost an expectation now that the marketing messages I receive are relevant and timely to where I am in my process.
Absolutely, and that's what this whole automation and programmatic marketing thing is all about.
Right.
And in actual fact, a company that we're aligned with as a partner is Infusionsoft, and we know that, David, you use Infusionsoft, and one of the things that they've done is they've actually introduced a social media module into their solution this year, and it goes some way to giving businesses a way to personalize updates and also do that whole automated marketing process. And others such as Salesforce and Nimble and Mzinga have also done the same. So it is absolutely a trend, and it's absolutely going on.
Fantastic.
And so that's it. That's the 5 big things. So we're done.
Okay, look, I really appreciate your time today, Indra. It's been information overload for me. Luckily, we are recording this session, so for those who would like to review it, we'll be sending it out to everybody who's involved. Let's talk about the things that people need to do. If you were going to wrap this up in a nutshell.
Okay, so the top 3 things that I'd recommend you do after this webinar is you can connect with me because I like to grow my social network, and I hope you will too now that you've heard a little bit about what we're talking about.
Yes.
Optimize your profile. So go through, start putting some keywords that are relevant to your industry, the daily tasks that you perform as part of your job. Get that into your profile.
Fantastic.
And I recommend you join a couple of groups. One, a group that's within your industry so that you can find out what's going on with regards to your competitors and possibly other companies within your supply chain. And 2 groups where your customers hang out. Find out what questions they're asking, see if you can be helpful to them. The other thing that I just wanted to provide you with is this, there's a LinkedIn website that LinkedIn have actually created, which is specifically for business owners. And they provide information about a lot of the marketing solutions that I've talked about, the in-mail, sponsored updates, all of those things that are available to anyone on LinkedIn.
Fantastic.
Now, before